Straw Hut Media.
I count myself lucky that rock bottom came so early and so frequently in my first years out of the closet. Maybe it's because of the uniquely scarring experience that put me in the closet in the first place, being in a major motion picture. But when I got out, I went big. And a few years later, I went home. I went home to work on myself. Who am I? That's what the past couple of years have been about. Every day it feels like I uncover some new little breadcrumb that my inner child left behind in case I ever went looking for him again. But being the protective little bugger he was, there are quite a few hurdles and roadblocks that I've had to get through in my efforts to reconnect with him. My type A personality has been eager for an ETA on when I'll get to the end of the trail. Ways? It is with great joy and clarity that I report back to you that there is actually no end of the trail. There is no arrival point in the discovery of self. You can imagine my initial disappointment as someone who, quite a few times now, has been pretty sure about who they were and was determined to get back to that place of safety. It's certainly what my fight or flight brain wanted. Certainty is comfortable. I put my blinders on at such a young age, and my work as of late has been to uncover the blind spots of who I am. I've also been encouraging others to come along and do this work with me because I believe there is healing to be done. I still believe that, but perhaps the word healing needs to be clarified because in a way, it implies a return to some sense of normalcy, that sense of safety we'd become used to. True healing questions who we are. Beyond any thought about who we are, there is an unlimited potential. If that's too spiritual for you, science has proven that we are made up of the same stuff as stars. Stars! So you can put up as many protective parameters around yourself as you like, but it won't ever change your ability to shine. And healing should be about enhancing the specific and unique way you shine, not covering it up with something so trivial as figuring out who you are right this minute. Often we try to package up who we are and wrap it with a bow, but if we tie the bow too tight, we don't leave enough room for what's actually there. It's not always easy and it definitely gets uncomfortable, but that is where I find myself in my inner work these days. The question is no longer, who am I? It's how much can I let go of who I am? I still don't know who I am, and for the first time ever, I don't care. Any knowing of who I am would prevent me from realizing what I can be.
Brian Falduto has a slew of titles under his belt. He was a child actor alongside Jack Black, he has a career in country music, he's a life coach, and he's thinking about writing a children's book. But today, we talked to Brian about what really got him to this point in his life. All the elementary school bullies, the pressure from being in the public eye, and his own internal homophobia that kept him from being his true self for years. Remember Billy from School of Rock? The sassy one with the tape measure around his neck? There's a popular gif of him saying,
"You're tacky and I hate you."
Well, this is him now. Feel old yet?
I'm Brian Falduto, and this is Pride.
Growing up, Brian knew he was meant to be on the big screen.
I was eccentric, I was outgoing, I was flamboyant, I was sassy, I was just really difficult to fit into a box. And I was singing the loudest in church choir and demanding my family watch performances of me in the living room.
He dreamed of the spotlight and continued to pursue performance environments until finally his parents got him an agent. And it didn't take long for him to be discovered. He started going to auditions, and by his second try, he got a gig. He was cast as Billy in a movie called School of Rock,
which has turned into a bit of a cult classic, which is exciting.
Brian was just 11 years old when he got his first taste of fame.
I think a little tidbit I like to share is that when I auditioned for the film, I sang a boy soprano rendition of Send in the Clowns, which I think is the reason I was cast. And then, it was a really long audition process. And then, I got to be in this movie, which was like this unparalleled experience to have at in the 5th grade. I got to leave school essentially for 4 to 5 months for filming, and then all the press stuff. You feel like a little bit of a star for a moment.
School of Rock came out in 2003 and stars Jack Black and Joan Cusack. In case you haven't seen the film, it follows a passionate guitar player named Dewey Finn who's thrown out of his band and starts posing as a substitute music teacher at a prep school to pay his bills.
And if I was gonna give you a grade, I would give you an A. But that's the problem. Rock ain't about doing things perfect.
He forms a rock band with his students, one of which is Billy. He becomes the kid's stylist for the band and is given the nickname Fancy Pants. And Brian, he had no problem portraying Billy in the film.
I was eccentric, I was flamboyant, I was sassy, and all these things were just things that translated into the character on screen.
But Billy was given another nickname from fans who had seen it. They simply called him the gay kid from School of Rock.
I didn't know that I was playing a gay character. I still don't really look back and refer to it as a gay character myself because it's a kid. And at the time, I didn't know what being gay was. And I think that we should be able to come up with our own labels over time as we see fit.
Pretty soon, Brian's classmates started calling him gay at school.
It was tough because, as I mentioned, I was in this unparalleled experience where I got to be in a movie in the 5th grade, which was the most exciting experience one can have at that age, I feel like. And then I felt like I was special that I got cast in this film. And then because my character was sort of referred to as the gay kid from School of Rock, when I returned to school, blending in with my 5th grade class of boys was really difficult because I didn't even know what being gay was, but everyone was calling me it.
It was the first time Brian was exposed to the term gay. But because it was being said by bullies at school, he started to interpret the word gay to mean something horrible.
I got the impression that that was a really bad thing to be called. And so, a couple of years later, when I maybe started to get feelings that I might be gay, I was already internally homophobic because I had heard this word referred to, and then I was told that that's something to be ashamed of. So it was kind of hard to go from getting cast and feeling really special to feeling sort of ashamed of the whole experience.
As a reminder, it was 2003, and there were very few examples of gay characters in the media, and even less in media that included children.
I was one of the few of them, and so I didn't feel like I had many people I can turn to talk about this.
Brian found support while on set with the rest of the School of Rock cast. They formed a bond so strong that they still talk today.
All the kids are still in a very active group text to this day. I think we might win for major motion picture that still keeps in touch as much as we do. But yeah, I think we were all just kind of launched into this really unique experience at a young age, which did sort of result in a massive bonding experience.
But still, Brian didn't open up to them about his feelings and his internal fight with accepting his sexuality. He kept it locked away from everyone.
Just because I went through something with them doesn't mean that they were witness to the isolating feelings that I felt inside of myself, because I wasn't exactly owning who I was once I found out that who I was something that people sort of looked down on at the time.
At the time, Brian wasn't able to see himself as a role model. It wasn't until years later that he finally realized the impact his character had on queer representation in media.
It's been so awesome to sort of come out and do these type of speaking opportunities and then have people be like, wow, your character resonated with me so much when I was younger. It was really important to me. That makes it all worth it, kind of the shame that I went through afterwards.
Young Brian became somewhat famous after School of Rock.
Famous is a strong word.
But because of his newfound fame, he was put into the spotlight at a very young age. Brian said he felt a pressure to be perfect.
I didn't know that it was okay to be gay. And so it just became about well, maybe I can turn this experience into at least I'm a really good actor, and then that sort of messed with my head for many years too, because then I had all this to prove as an actor and trying to be successful in the eyes of other people. It was none of it was about me. It was about what other people think of me. And that really messes with your head at a young age, I got cast for this thing I stood out for, and then after the film, it just became about blending in, which is just so sad when you think about it, And now my work these days is to sort of do the work on bringing back my authentic self before I tried to be what everyone wanted me to be or expected me to be.
He continued to struggle with his identity, and he didn't come out as gay to his friends or family until his senior year of college. A big time jump from when he was cast in School of Rock.
All I wanted was to be unassociated with this thing that I was made to feel at such a young age and embedded in my unconscious that was like something wrong. So there was a lot of denial to sort through. And then I came out of the closet. But when you come out of the closet, you don't get to just flip a switch on 14 years of hating yourself, right? So it's like, I came out of the closet, but then I entered like those really maybe some people will know what I'm talking about, but those really like destructive years where, I'm an out gay man now, but what does that mean? Who am I? And so I kept trying to find myself in other people and all these toxic relationships and seeking validation anywhere I could find it.
But no relationship could help him sort through his own feelings. Instead, Brian looked to another creative outlet to help him express his emotions: music.
I was going through a lot of tough feelings, and I started writing some songs, and that's sort of the first time I reached into my own well and I pulled up my own water of emotion rather than what I thought I was supposed to say or what I thought I was supposed to do. Because when you put a lyric into a melody, you can say things you wouldn't normally say to someone, so it's almost like an excuse to be dramatic, and everything inside me felt so dramatic and closed off. And that was kind of like my first tool for getting that out of me.
Brian first broke out into the music scene in 2017 with an acoustic EP called Love One Another. He debuted his first studio album titled Stage 2 in 2018, and his most recent music venture is his newest song called God Loves Me Too.
But here I am in the fourth pew in, and the preacher man says love's not a sin. I look around.
It took a lot of hard work and reflecting for Brian to accept who he is now and the boy he was when he was 11.
I look back now with a beautiful lens of I feel so fortunate that I was able to capture that version of myself and on screen that even I can look back as a reference point to I think that the reason that people love that character is because, as I said, you couldn't really fit it in a box, and that's who I was, and I think that's who I am on my core,
In addition to songwriting as a creative outlet, Brian began to incorporate self-care into his daily routines. He set aside time to focus on himself because acceptance wasn't going to happen overnight.
People love my story because they love hearing that I'm this out, proud, confident gay man now, and they love hearing about the bullying days and how hard it was. But no one wants to talk about the chapters in between where I actually did all this intense work on myself, and I sat with my emotions, and I practiced self-care, and that doesn't just happen. And one of my missions now, sort of in life, I have a podcast, I'm a life coach now. I'm trying to make that work a little bit more accessible to those in the queer community, because I don't know that there's necessarily places that we can easily go to have those difficult conversations or sit with our emotions or talk about how we're feeling. I don't think that gay culture is necessarily built for that. It's built for a lot of other beautiful, fun things where we get to showcase our pride and be loud and proud. And those are wonderful, needed things. I'm not saying people shouldn't do those things, but there's also just a moment to sit at home and do some journaling and go through everything that you've been going through.
Thanks for watching part 1 of our interview with Brian Falduto. In part 2, we'll talk about the importance of self-care and how to incorporate it into your daily life.
Straw Hut Media.